Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Hercules and the Space Gods, I'm proud to bring you the URANTIA book with Nick Curto. Greetings, Nick.
Hey, good to see you and looking forward to the program tonight. I've been really looking forward to this is part two of Larry Bowman's interview. So really, this is going to be quite special.
I know it will be. I'll be here listening.
Great. Thank you so much, Hercules. Best producer I've ever had. You are.
I'm honored.
Larry, so wonderful to have you here, my friend.
Thank you.
And last time we covered some ground. I want to cover a lot more ground with you tonight. Just a brief thing. I want to just tell my audience that the URANTIA book has meant everything to my life. I looked for this after college when I wanted to find more, was seeking spiritual and religious other experiences. And I came across the URANTIA book quite by accident in a Unitarian church. And it's changed my life for the better, for sure. And I highly recommend the book. There's a couple of websites. I want to just say that right off the bat, and then we'll start the interview. The URANTIA book can be found in a couple of different places on the internet. I'm going to go slowly and give you the how to get it. www.urantiabook.org. That's the fellowship website. It's spectacular. The other one is urantia.org, and that's the foundation. And one more, and that is urantia.nyc, and that is my society, my URANTIA Book Society of Greater New York's website, and that also is excellent. All three websites have amazing information about the URANTIA book, the history, and also the different languages you can hear or you can read the URANTIA book in, and that's all for free online. So there's quite a bit there. Okay, with that, Larry, again, good to see you, my friend. And oh boy, we had a wonderful 60 minutes the last time of part one, but this is part two because there's so much more we need to talk about. Is there any particular area you'd like to start this with tonight?
Okay, just as a reminder, this is the URANTIA book.
There you go.
This is the one that's published by the URANTIA Book Fellowship. URANTIA Foundation has a different edition, but the text is the same in both books. What I like about this is that there is an index in the back. But anyway, as you mentioned, it is available online on both websites. Let's see. What was your question? I forget.
No, just that we did cover a little bit about your dad and being at the very beginning of this incredible experience, and also then you, of course, being his son, and you are involved, very much involved in the work of the fellowship and of outreach. So I just want to pick it up from that point. Maybe more information about your dad and what he was involved with, and then also we'll get into your involvements too.
Okay. Well, I have kind of prepared an outline of things I want to cover. So this is a book that was published last fall. It's the URANTIA Diaries of Clarence Bowman, 1923 to 1958. And there is an introduction by me, and that is those are his diaries. Now, as you can see, they were kind of small, but this book was edited by Saskia, she calls herself Promsma, and Matthew Block. And these books were lined up on a chair over there, and she took them, and so it makes a nice cover. Anyway, my dad, first of all, I have to say that my dad, my dad was 50 when I was born. So he was born in 1889, and eventually he became a railway mail clerk, and that was back in the days when passenger trains had a mail car that handled the mail. And that car, of course, was closed off to passengers, so passengers on a train could not have gain access to that car. But anyway, he had been living in Chicago for a few years. Let's see, the Dr. William S. Sadler, who really kind of he was the psychiatrist who had this sleeping subject who had been a patient of his for several years, starting in about 1906 or 1908. And this continued for several years. And then on February 11th, 1923, he and his wife, Dr. Lena Sadler, who was also a doctor, they decided to start a Sunday afternoon meeting at their residence and office, a three-story building at 533 Diversey Parkway on the north side of Chicago, just off Lincoln Park. This date of February 11th, 1923, I've only really learned of in about the past, well, actually, this is 2025 now. So I first heard it mentioned in early 2020. David Kulicki mentioned, and I said, really, I've never heard that date mentioned before as the date of the beginning of the forum. But he said that was right. And actually, then I came across some writings that my own sister, Carolyn Kendall, who did work for Dr. Sadler for a couple of years, and she learned a lot about the history at his by working with him. She wrote that too. So anyway, I don't know whether you're around in 2023. We did have an online celebration of that. It was a Zoom meeting from 533, and I attended in person. So anyway, my dad was named Clarence Bowman, and he started attending the forum in November 11th. And he continued for actually back in those days. I guess the meetings began in November and ran till only through about the end of April. I think as years passed, they started earlier and ran later. But anyway, those early years, it seemed to be from November through May. So he had been with it for over a year. And then in December 1924, there were two meetings where Dr. Sadler informed the forum of his longtime patient who seemed to be receiving messages from celestial beings. And it so happened that the preceding February 11th in 1924, there's that date again, February 11th, but this time it's 1924, that some high-level celestial beings suggested to the Sadlers that they make use of their Sunday group and have them ask questions, about major things like life after death and the universe and so forth. But it was still several months. It wasn't until this December 1924 that Doctor finally revealed to the group about his sleeping subject, not identifying him, of course. The forum never knew who the person was. And to this day, I certainly don't know who it was. But anyway, the forum was encouraged to ask questions, and ultimately 181 questions were submitted, and some of the answers started coming through early the following year, 1925, but it wasn't until November 1925 that they really started coming in the form of papers, early forms of what we now call the Urantia papers, or which eventually became the Urantia book. And just to give you an idea of what some of the topics were over that year and well into 1926, some of the subjects covered were the sons of God, attributes of God, the third source and center, high personalities of the third source and center, spiritual artisans, ministering spirits of time, cherubim and seraphim. And then on March 21st in 1926, my dad mentions in his diary that the foreword was reread. That's his first mention of the foreword, and it's interesting to know that as early as 1926, that something called the foreword was in existence. Now, whether it's the same foreword that we know of now that begins with, the opening line, there's confusion among the mortals of Urantia, that being the name of your planet. I really don't know. Actually, it's interesting. My dad doesn't even mention the name Urantia for, I don't know when he first mentions it. I think it's well into 1927 or 28. So I don't know when he actually first heard the name Urantia, but so that's kind of interesting. Some other subjects that were read at least through 1926 were the divine gift, conjoined actor, the central universe, things like that. So, and this continued, Dad continued until early November 1928, when he moved to a small town called Deshler, Ohio. And this was on the main line of the old Baltimore, Ohio Railroad, the B&O Railroad. And his run as a railway mail clerk was always between Chicago and Pittsburgh. And it would involve 2 round trips and then staying overnight in Pittsburgh. And then, well, while he was living in Chicago, Chicago was his residence. But after November 1928, he lived in Ohio for the next, until 1943. But he was still able to attend forum meetings for a while, at least about 3 years or so, because depending upon, of course, when he would be in Chicago, when there would be a layover there and so forth, things sort of changed for him because on August 24th, 1931, after 42 years of bachelorhood, he married my mother, Virginia Walmack. Both of them were from Kentucky. My dad was from the southern part of the state, and mom was from the northeastern part of the state. And they settled in Defiance, Ohio, which is just a few miles west of Deshler. And they remained there then until 1943. And actually, October 4th, 1931 was Clarence's last regular Sunday forum meeting until June 21st, 1942. But during the years, sometimes when he was in Chicago, he was able to stop in at 533 and be able to read some of the papers. Let's see, in October 1932, my sister Carolyn was born. And on Wednesday, August 21st, 1935, Clarence attended the forum meeting celebrating Jesus' birthday. This apparently was the first time that ever happened. So it's the first mention of the Jesus Papers. Now, as you may know, the Jesus Papers occupies part 4 of the Urantia book, which is the biggest part of the book, but they aren't dated. But we do know that the Jesus Papers came all at once, and they did come in early 1935. We know that from other sources. In June 1939, I was born. And let's see, then by, well, as you know, then the World War II broke out. Well, actually, we got into the war after Pearl Harbor in December 1941. And it really became difficult for Dad to be commuting back and forth. What he would have to do is that he would start in Defiance and sort of deadhead to Chicago and then begin his 2 round trips, end up back in Chicago and then deadhead back to Defiance. And that just got to be tiring for him. He was getting on in years. He was well into his 50s by then. And being a railway mail clerk was a physically demanding job. There's a lot of heavy lifting of mail bags and so forth. And also, due to wartime rationing and gas and tires and so forth, he finally talked my mother into moving to Chicago. Well, she was not too happy about that, but they did. So on August 16th, 17 of 1943, the family did move from Defiance to Chicago, and we lived on the north side in what is called the North Center neighborhood. And it was October 3rd when Dad was able to resume attending the Sunday meetings. Virginia was not at all interested. So this went on for several years. My sister Carolyn graduated from high school in 1951, and on October 15th of 1951, at the age of 19, she had her interview with Dr. Sadler and she attended her first forum meeting. The following April, Dr. Sadler offered her a job as receptionist and switchboard operator, but just when she started working, it's not clear because it's not, the specific date isn't mentioned in Dad's diary. He may have been out of town when she started working, but she worked at 533 Diversity for the better part of 2 years until just shortly before the birth of her first child. In June of 1952, she got her fiance, Tom Kendall, into the forum. And then they married on February 21st, 1953 in Chicago. And by this time, Mom thought, well, if this is good enough for my future son-in-law, I guess maybe there's something to it. So she was a long time holdout, and she finally, on Mother's Day in 1953, she had her interview with Dr. Sadler, whom she had met before over the years at socials and so forth. And so she joined the forum. Then on August 3rd of 1953, well, I had finished grade school by then. So Mom, Dad, and I moved out to the suburbs, a suburb called Prospect Heights. And we soon started attending a new Presbyterian church in nearby Mount Prospect that then was meeting in the movie theater. Although about 2 years later, they were able to build their own church. And I joined the choir, and the choir director was Alvin Kulicki, who was chemistry teacher at my high school, Arlington Heights High. And Alvin and Lucille, his wife Lucille, were both members of the forum, and they became family friends. Alvin's son, David, was about 3.5 then, but he was, as you probably know, he was to become a leader in the movement himself, and he and I kind of served on the general council at the same time. And anyway, I had indicated an interest in joining the forum myself, I think even before we moved out to the suburbs, but either Dr. Sadler told me directly, or maybe Carolyn said that he thought it'd be best if I kind of wait and get adjusted to high school for a while. So it was just after the end of my freshman year. It was on Wednesday, June 30th, 1954, at the age of 15, that I became a member of the forum. And actually, I'd like to read just a little bit of my entry from how I found the URANTIA book. This is something that Saskia compiled. And let's see. And so it was that on June 30th, 1954, shortly after my 15th birthday, I had my interview with Dr. Sadler. Dad and Carolyn sat in with me. I no longer can remember everything the doctor might have told me, but I know he mentioned the visits he would make with Howard Thurston, the magician, to expose false mediums. Of course, he told me about the long-time patient he'd had who seemed to be a conduit for celestial beings. I'd already heard about him from Dad and Carolyn. What else he might have told me that night, I cannot separate with certainty from stories I have subsequently heard over the years. I missed only 2 meetings that entire year of 53, 54. The meeting started at 3 o'clock and ran until 5. This was on Sundays, with a break about halfway through. Because the book had not yet been published, the format for the weekly meetings was for Bill Sadler, that would be William Sadler Jr., to read the paper aloud. Only after the reading were any questions allowed. Bill had an excellent speaking voice and was a very good reader. If he was ever absent, either his father or Christy, that would be Emma Christensen, would be the reader. That first year, the forum was in part 1. Here I was, a 15-year-old, mingling with old people, folks in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I'm now in my 80s, and listening to the hardest part of the URANTIA papers. I'm sure I comprehended very little, but I felt it was my duty to attend and get what I could out of the meetings. On my own, I was reading part 3 of the papers. That would be the history of URANTIA. In order to do that, I accompanied my parents on Wednesday evenings, and Mom and I sat in a room on the first floor and read there. If their dad was with us that evening, he would be upstairs in the forum room attending the 70, the advanced study group that started in 1939. I don't think Dad was actually able to join the 70 until some years after he moved back to Chicago. I didn't make note of the date. I'm thinking it was long about 1945 or 46. So anyway, this continued to be the routine until October 12th, 1955, when the URANTIA book was published. When Dad came home that night from the 70 with the copies he had ordered, he brought me my own copy, which I have to this day. I guess I should have brought it here, but I didn't. So in it, I inscribed, published and given to me on the 12th day of October, the year commonly known as 1955 AD. So that sounds kind of highfalutin, but in my adolescent fervor, I guess I thought that once the teachings of the URANTIA book became universal, the calendar would change. Perhaps I thought 7 BC would become year 1. I remember giving a talk in high school, maybe sometime that year in English class. I think we were supposed to give a speech about persuasion. So I think I said, it's becoming generally believed, or it's known that Jesus was born as early as 4 BC, and there's some belief that it might have happened even earlier, like 6 or 7 BC. And I myself lean towards the latter year, and I think maybe eventually when this becomes finalized that we should redo the calendar and start numbering from 7 BC. Well, that didn't go over with anybody, but can you imagine all the turmoil that would create if that happened? So
You're not absolutely true. You know, when
yeah,
I
right.
read in the URANTIA book that Jesus was born in August, August
Yeah, right.
21, at,
Yeah.
I believe, 12 noon. I believe that's what the book said.
Yeah, that they say, yeah.
And even that alone, because of course we all celebrate it uh, on December 25th, which was, long story short, earlier, it was a pagan holiday
Uh-huh.
that they switched to uh, Jesus' birthday because they thought that was a good plan to take that holiday, that the particular date, and make it Jesus' birthday. Although, what again, that seems to be the only reason they did that. So we have to rethink everything here now in
Yeah.
2025 to say no, it wasn't. Even though we celebrate it, it's the big holiday, of course, and have to
Yeah.
rethink that a bit. And some people, Larry, are going to have a hard time with just that. Just that alone, they're going to have a hard time.
Yeah. Well, actually, one of the fun things maybe about being a reader of the Ranch book is we sort of celebrate Christmas twice. I mean,
I love that.
yeah,
Sign me up.
I don't know of any Urantia book readers who really don't participate in the December 25th celebration. And uh, but I've always made it a point to try to attend the Jesus birthday celebrations on August 21st. And actually, in 2016, I was with Diane Lebrecht's tour of Israel that summer, and actually, we were in Bethlehem at the, I guess they call it the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. I think that's right. I think we were there about 2 days earlier, but on that August 21st, we were up on Mount Hermon,
Oh,
and
wow.
um, and which is where the actually Jesus was up on Mount Hermon twice, both times in August. One time was in August 25 AD, and the 2000th anniversary of that is coming up this summer, and
Oh,
that's that's when he conferred with I guess it was Caligastia and well, maybe Lucifer too. I think I forget who it was, but anyway, I and the lad Tiglath. Now, as you know, my email address is Tiglath25.
mhm.
And that's what the number means. It really is referring to Tiglath was a lad whom Jesus hired to leave him provisions for him while was up on Mount Hermon for the next 6 weeks, I guess it was. So it ran into September. And so anyway, so that's where that name.
That would have to be quite an experience just to be standing in the same grounds,
Uh-huh.
knowing what happened way back when. That would just have to be a very interesting feeling. I hope someday I can do that. And
Yeah,
Diane Lebrecht is a dear friend of mine, and
yeah.
to be in her tour in the Holy
Uh-huh.
Land, I think I'm so glad you did that.
Yeah, that was the second tour I think she led. David and Marilyn Kuelke, and among others, went on her first tour, which is maybe 2 years earlier, but it wasn't in August. Uh, I mean, I mean, it's hard to believe that Jesus would be born in August. I mean, yes, it is warm in Israel in August. So, and actually, as you may know, there was a 2000th anniversary tour, which I guess would have been in 19, or wait a minute, would have been 2003. No, it's 1993, I think is when it was. Berkeley Elliott led that. And I know some people who attend to that, and it was a little difficult for them to be there in Israel in August.
In New York City, I host a picnic in Central Park, right
Oh,
behind the Met Museum, on
oh,
August 21.
Oh, do you?
Yes, it's been wonderful, and people come from not only New York, but Connecticut and New
Uh-huh.
Jersey, and we gather around in a circle. We bring food and share food, also usually dessert food we share, and
Uh-huh.
read from the book, and it's just such a wonderful experience to celebrate Jesus' birthday on August 21. We read a little bit from the Rancher book about that particular amazing day. And
Yeah,
it's one of the high points of the year for us.
yeah. So you do it on August 21st,
Absolutely.
whatever day of the week it is,
Whatever, right? Even if it's, no, it has not been raining, Larry, ever, ever. And,
Really?
my mom used to say it would never rain on Mother's Day. It just would never do that. And you know what? She's right. She said, never. From Irish mother
Yeah.
from Massachusetts, and I always got a kick out of her saying that. And to this day, we've never had anything but beautiful sunny weather on the picnic in Central Park. So I just
Well,
wanted to
that's
share that with you.
yeah. And then, well, as you know too, I mean, at 533 Diversity, I mean, they continue to celebrate it on August 21st. But our own society, and I think probably a lot of other societies, really try to choose the Saturday or Sunday closest to that date. So I imagine this year, well, in fact, I'm just I will have barely gotten back from a road trip this August 21st. I think it comes on Wednesday this year, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I'm going to be doing a 3 week road trip starting late July. I'll be taking in the summer seminar at Unity Village in Kansas City, and then going on to eventually to northeastern Kentucky to visit some of my relatives, and up to Chicago and uh, stay with my youngest nephew and his wife, and see some of my relatives who are there. That would be my my sister's family. Carolyn is no longer living; she died in 2020, and so really, I've never married, so my closest relatives are my nephews and nieces and all their offspring. And actually, there's my oldest nephew who lives in California. He's a grandfather. So there's, gosh, he already has 6 great grandchildren,
Hmm.
grandchildren, excuse me.
One thing
So
too, just before we move on, is that recent research, I read this a couple of months ago, has has revealed, according to their studies, that they believe that Jesus was born in the late summer.
ah,
This is not your Rancher Book people. This is
right.
a separate group of scientists, and they said they believe, from everything they researched, it was late summer. Well, guess what?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, late summer happens to be August 21. So
Yeah,
isn't that interesting? I wanted to just share that with you.
yeah. Well, and actually, I remember the planetarium in the Chicago lakefront. Usually every year, I guess they would have a program on the Star of Bethlehem. And I don't think they were settling upon August or summer, but they were certainly saying it wasn't. I mean, first of all, there isn't a year. Well, there is a year. I mean, you go from 1 BC to 1 AD. Um, but they may have been actually. I seem to recall that they were even saying 6 BC or something like that. So anyway, so. Um, Oh, I did want to mention, okay, the book was published in 1955. I will say that the preceding January 2nd of 1955, my dad was one of 36 signers of the Articles of Organization of what was then called Urantia Brotherhood. And so he became one of the original members of the General Council. And so he served on, I guess they were all elected to 9 year terms because the Triennial Delegate Assembly actually did didn't have its first meeting until 9 years later. So I guess that was 1964. Well, unfortunately, my dad wasn't able to serve his full term. I'll get up to that in a moment. Let's see, on June 17th, 1956, the Forum became the first URANTIA Society, or I guess they called it First URANTIA Society of Chicago. Sometimes we sort of jokingly call it the Mother Church and everything like that. But our family, there'd be all four of us, including, let's see, well, five of us, including my brother-in-law, Tom Kendall. We were all charter members. And so, I mean, let's say, I guess by then I was, well, let's see. Oh, yeah, I just turned 17. So I have to admit, I didn't really quite understand what was going on that day, but I do remember signing the membership book, and I do have a copy of the page with my signature and so forth. And something I'll mention is that I am now the last living active member or reader, I should say, last active reader of the URANTIA book, who was around when the URANTIA book was published and then when the Forum became the first society. In January of 1959, my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer. So actually, by then he'd already attended his last Forum, or I mean, society meeting. I didn't look up that date, but it's probably the preceding December, something like that. And on August 31st, he passed away. And on September 2nd was the memorial service. And it was the first usage of a URANTIA style memorial service that had been written. Actually, I thought for years that Dr. Sadler had written it himself, but actually in more recent years, I came to find out it was actually written by Meredith Sprunger, who was introduced to the book very soon after the book was published, by early 1956. And he was a minister. And so he wrote the memorial service, and you can find it on the URANTIA Book Fellowship website. The URANTIA Book Fellowship is the successor name of URANTIA Brotherhood. There's some things that happened in, what was it, 1989, that what was then called the Brotherhood became the Fellowship and everything like that.
I met Meredith Sprunger when I was in Colorado at a gathering, and boy, I could spend hours with that man. He was so amazing, so interesting, so
Yeah.
sharing, and so loving. And it's one of those people I will never forget having the good fortune to meet him.
Yeah, and so yeah, the interesting thing about that memorial services, I mean, it was the first one, and Dr. Sadler was present, and he was sure that there would be some celestial beings in attendance just to see what was going on and everything. And well, so the rest of it, I'll just share some dates about myself. Before, I think even by the time that my dad died, I had started attending another study group in addition to the First Society meetings on Sunday. It was a meeting that was formed by a fellow named Al Leverance, and he was a member of the First Society, and that was closer to what they call back then it was called the near north side. They seem to be using a slightly different name now. But anyway, I started attending those meetings. For a while, they were on Tuesday nights, and then they were Friday nights. And I guess it was on June 27th, 1961, which I think was a Tuesday, that it became the URANTIA Rancher Society. And Carol and Tom and I were among the founders. So, okay, I was already a charter member of the first society, and then I became a co-founder of the URANTIA Rancher Society, which still exists, although now it's a virtual society, I guess sort of headquartered in Indiana. Well, then though, I started became an inactive member because that fall I went off to college. Now, I had been going to a school in the Chicago Loop for a couple of years called Columbia College or Chicago Columbia College. It was sort of a specialized school in the creative arts, and I was sort of concentrating on creative writing and so forth. But I dropped after about 2.5 years and had an office job for a while. And then almost on the spur of the moment, I went off to Northern Illinois University, which is in DeKalb, Illinois, about 60 miles west of Chicago. So I ultimately got a BA degree with a history major in history and a minor in English, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And finally, what do you call it? A placement agent. He said, well, you know, NIU does have a library, a Department of Library Science, and you did work in the library there at the university. Why don't you go back and get a degree in library science? And he said, library science, yeah. But I did, and I really ended up enjoying it. So I got my degree in 1957, and I did interview for jobs at Columbia University there in New York. I'd always wanted to live in New York City, and also interviewed at Cornell University.
Please come sometime, and I'll give you my tour of New York City, especially the new things that are now here. So you have a standing invitation, my friend.
Well, I'll take you up on that. I was
Please do.
I was last in New York in 2016. It was when Pope Francis was there, and I had a 1 second unobstructed view of him. It was when his cavalcade was going from. He'd spoken at the United Nations, and then he went from there. He went east on. Or no, let's see, no, he was going west towards the Hudson River. It was on 66th Avenue, and then I don't know where he ended up that day. I forget now where it was, but anyway, so I got to see him. But that's the last time I was there. But well, I ended up actually both those libraries offered me a job, but I decided to take the job at Cornell in the engineering library. I knew nothing about engineering, but it was an interesting experience. So on August 16th, 1967, which turned out to be exactly 24 years to the day from the day our family moved to Illinois from Ohio in 1943. That's when I moved to Ithaca. I was there only 1 year, and then believe it or not, opportunity came up to become librarian of Defiance College in the town where I was born, Defiance, Ohio. Now, Defiance College is not a well-known college. In some respects, it's kind of a second chance college, but I had the opportunity to be the head librarian there for 5 years, and it was a fun experience. But then frankly, I was beginning to worry about whether the college was going to continue to exist because enrollment had declined a little, and they were starting to lay off tenured professors, which is a big no-no. And so I started looking around, and I ended up out here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and worked from 1973 till 2001 at Scottsdale Public Library. So I switched from academic to public libraries. And well, anyway, all that time from really the time that I left Illinois and into my early years here in Arizona, I was really kind of away from the Urantia book. Along about 1969, I became a member at large. I switched from being a member of the Urantia Society to being a member at large, and I was that for several years. And it was long about January or February of 1978 that my mom was visiting. Actually, she was here for about 2 or 3 months, for the winter season. And we learned that that a former forum member, his name was Herman Schell, he and his wife had retired to the Phoenix area. And we learned that he and a woman from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and she was connected with the society that Meredith Strunger started there. The Fort Wayne Society was actually started while I was, became installed while I was living in Defiance as an adult. Well, anyway, we learned that he wasn't hosting the group, but it was a study group that was meeting on the north side of Phoenix. So Mom talked me into going to the group, and I was a little, I'd sort of been away from the book actually for a while, but we went, and that's all I needed, just to be back in a study group. So I was hooked. Well, 2 years later, Herman unfortunately became terminally ill. And so the woman who was hosting the meeting, she called me and said, could you take over the hosting? And at the time I was living in an apartment, actually just 1 street west of me from here in Scottsdale, still within walking distance of the library. I would often walk to work. And so I took it over. And so I continued to host a study group for 24 years, actually, until
Wow.
till April 1st, 2004. I remember that date because we actually were at the very last paper of the book. And I was starting to do by then I was living in this townhouse. I moved in here in 1992. And by then I was retired, and I wanted to do some rather extensive remodeling. And so I just thought that now that we're at the end of the book, it would be a good time to stop the study group. But by then there were other study groups going on. And but in the meantime, in 1981, I attended my first URANTIA conference, and that was at Snowmass, Colorado. And I've only missed 2 conferences since then. And on May 18th, 1990, which was 35 years ago, this past Sunday, I didn't realize it until the night before, because actually we were having our annual banquet. And then I realized, tomorrow's the 35th anniversary of our founding. Well, that's when we became what it's now called the Grand Canyon Urantia Book Society. So we're 35 years old. And then that summer, I attended my first summer study session, and that was at Lake Forest College in Illinois. And then some other things. And from 2010 to 2021, I served on the Fellowship General Council, and for 7 of those years, not consecutive years, I was Secretary General. So when my term was up in 2021, I was 82, and I had originally thought, well, I'll sign up for another 9 years if they want to. But then I thought, well, let's let some younger people get on. So I chose not to run. So among the people who was elected after me was Larry Geis. who's just a few years younger than I.
Hmm.
Not
I
too
know
much.
Larry. He's quite something. Quite a guy. Quite a guy.
Yeah, he's a character. He'd been on before. Um, and then eventually I had been secretary of the Canyon Society for several years, and I finally decided, um, let's just I'm going to go off the coordinating committee. And so I'm in no leadership roles now. And but I'm still active in our study group, which meets on Zoom on Tuesday nights, and I go to summer seminars, and I'm looking forward to next year's um, conference, which I don't know whether you know where it is, but it's going to be at a Silmar Conference Center on the Monterey Bay Peninsula in California. I've
Hmm.
been to Monterey Bay a couple of times, so that's a great site. So I'm looking forward to attending that.
Larry, you have worn a lot of various hats. Certainly have in your amazing life. You've been at the right place at the right time. Your
Yeah.
dad was at the right place at the right time. How
Yep.
incredibly wonderful. I mean, really, when you think of it, and the fact that all those experiences and welcoming such an incredible work that is just it's hard to even describe the amazing, limitless love and cutting edge knowledge that's in this book. It blew
Uh-huh.
me away. And I say to people, be careful about the Urantia book because it's a lot like potato chips. Once you start, you're going to go and you're going to read the entire you're going to do that because once you start reading it, you have to continue. You just your your knowledge and your oh my God, and you have a lot of aha moments there as you go from chapter to chapter. When
Hmm.
I first got the book, I went to the table of contents and I jumped around because
Yeah.
there was so many subjects that what do
Yeah.
they say about blah 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 and
Yeah.
what would they right? So I did
Yeah.
that.
That's a good thing to do, really. Start with the table of contents.
I suggest for new readers they do that.
Right.
What is very important to you in the table of contents, go to that first.
Uh-huh.
And I
Yeah.
think that will whet your appetite. Okay, now I have to go to page one. And page one,
Right.
the first sentence got me. The first sentence, I went, holy boy, am I in the right book? And
Yeah.
you know, oh my, it was just incredible. What an experience it is. Now we're
Mm.
running about Hercules about what, about 7 more minutes? About 5 more minutes. Oh, seven. Okay, about 7 more minutes. All right.
Oh, six to me. Well,
I
I
know
know.
it goes fast. Larry, one thing I want to say to you is somewhere in the fall, sir, I would like to do a part three with you.
Oh, again?
Well, because I have a lot of questions. And I wanted you to really give your background and your dad's incredible life and experiences. I really wanted to set that up first, but I have some questions about your opinion on certain things.
Mm.
What parts of the book that you cherish the most? I wanted to find out a little bit more about certain parts of the book and how you feel about it, things like that. So,
Well,
depending on your schedule, I'll give you some dates and you let me know if you can.
well, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be, I don't consider myself an elder statesman that I can give direction on where the movement should go or anything like that. I'm not sure I'm maybe the best person
Okay, then I
to
won't ask
suggest.
that type of question. I'll ask other questions. And
Yeah, right.
I'll give you them before we do the program so that you have, you
Okay.
know, some preparation for that. Um,
Okay.
the it's such an incredible experience to come across such a book with
Uh-huh.
with such what shall I say, life-changing knowledge for sure.
Mhm.
And I'm as excited about this book as I was when I first read it.
Mhm.
It was just, I thought there would be something somewhere in my future that would mean something very special to me. And when I first heard the pages being read by a minister in the Unitarian Church, I went,
Uh,
oh my goodness, I think I found it. And I did. I
uh,
consider myself very blessed with that. Sir,
yeah.
thank you so much for being my guest. What an experience, and for sharing. And is your book currently available on Amazon, or how do we get the book?
You mean the
Your book?
Rancher Diaries of Clarence Bowman? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the only way it can be ordered is through Amazon.com. Yeah,
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Well, good luck with that. I intend to get a copy myself.
not getting any royalties. If that's what you're thinking.
I wasn't thinking of that. I'm just really
And
happy that you
yeah,
did the book. I think that's terrific you did that.
yeah.
So, but anyhow, sir, what an experience. And we're okay. We're all set. Again, my friend, thank you so much. Hercules, we're okay here. We have about 5 more minutes.
Yes.
Okay. The Urantia book has been called the fifth epical revelation. Who named that? Do you have any idea where that came from? Was it Sadler, or who?
Uh, well, that's a good question. I think it just comes from the fact that we're already told about the previous revelations of epical significance, and
Can you do you have do you want to name them? Can you do that?
yes, well, the first one was 500,000 years ago, the planetary prince, and things went along fine for 300,000 years, and then perhaps you've heard of somebody named Lucifer.
Oh, yes.
Uh, led a rebellion in our uh, system, and our planetary prince sided with him. So we became, what's the word? We were no longer in open contact with celestial beings anymore. Let's see. Okay. And then Adam and Eve came along about 37,000 years ago, and they are celestial beings, and they came essentially to biologically uplift the human race. Human race dates from roughly 1 million years ago, something like that. And then there was an emergency um, uh, revelation roughly 73 years, I forget how many years before Jesus was born.
Hmm.
And that was Macaventa Melchizedek. And he came as a full-born male, and he was here for about 94 years. And then Jesus himself came as an infant, and he is actually our the ruler of our local universe, yeah, named Nebadon.
So that's four, and of course 5 is the
Yeah.
Urantia book,
Uh-huh.
the fifth epical revelation. Well, that's pretty heavy stuff here. I mean, that is really quite
Yep.
important. And
Mhm.
I think that if a person reads the book, they will come to the conclusion that indeed this is very, very special. Larry, I'm going to have to go. I just thank you, sir, so much for being my guest tonight.
Thank
Total
you.
pleasure, absolute total pleasure.
Okay.
And so we're all set. Hercules, thank you so much. And we'll take it from there. Go ahead.
Thank you both so much as well. I lost my screen, so
Oh, no.
I can to refine myself.
Well, we see you.
Yes, and I can't see the buttons very well.
Larry, doesn't Hercules have a very biblical look?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely does. Absolutely. Um,
I
can we,
guess if you guys want, you can disengage and I'll deal with it afterwards.
okay, we'll do that again. Larry, thank you so much.
Okay.
Take good
Thank you.
care, my friend.
Thank
And,
you
and
both for a great show.
thank you, Hercules. And Larry, please take me up on that invitation. We'd love to have you here in New York. We would.